This is a News 10 NBC First Alert Weather Special. Tracking your winter starts now.
Hey, welcome to another winter here in Western New York. I'm First Alert meteorologist Stacey Pengen, along with meteorologist Rich Cornelia, Glenn Johnson, and of course the newest member of our First Alert weather team, Nate Morris.
Yeah, you've seen Nate with me on weekday mornings and News 10 NBC Today weekends. Nate, what should our viewers know about you?
Well, first of all, Rich, I'm very glad to be here. I'm originally from Massachusetts, so I'm no stranger to winter weather, but of course over here it's just a completely different ballgame. I went to school down in Delaware, and this is my first TV job, and to be honest, I could not have asked for a better team to join. Lately, I've been spending my free time just exploring the city and the surrounding area. My favorite spot to go to so far has got to be Letchworth State Park. I mean, I had no idea that we had our very own version of the Grand Canyon up here in the Finger Lakes region. I also heard that up here in Rochester, you guys have something called a garbage plate.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you're supposed to eat it?
Yeah.
Well, the recommendation is to go easy on the garbage plates. There's no doubt about that. And we want to welcome you to the team. We want to welcome you to Rochester, Nate. And you're really going to love the weather right here in Rochester.
Yeah.
Love that lick of snow. And coming on up, we're going to take you through some of our worst weather out there, some heavy snow, and also the coldest month on record here in Rochester, and one of the worst snowstorms Western New York has ever seen.
Yeah, and we're also going to take you to a place where there's snow to play on, whether Mother Nature delivers it or maybe not.
And of course, we're looking ahead to our winter to see what it might look like this year. Is it going to be snowy? Is it going to be cold? Or is it going to be wimpy for the third year in a row? Yeah,
speaking of which, let's start with a look back at some of our more recent winters, which, let's face it, haven't been impressive for winter lovers.
Yeah, if you love winter weather, well, you're probably hating the last couple of winter seasons. We averaged just over 100 inches of snow at the Rochester airport, but the last few years haven't exactly been on par for the course. We haven't even come close to the average annual snowfall, and the last time that happened, you got to go back to the 2018-2019 season. So you could say it has been a snow drought here, at least the last couple of years, which really begs the question, is this unprecedented? Is this the new norm for Western New York? Or have we been down this not-so-snowy road before? First Alert meteorologist Rich Cornelia, he is going to go in depth.
If you like snowy winters as much as I do, then the past 5 years have been a truly miserable stretch of wimpy winters. And I am sure you have heard or even said, it just doesn't snow like it used to. So is that true? Well, let's take a look at the numbers. One stat we use is the 30-year snow average. And looking back 30 years, ending in 2020, the average was roughly 101 inches. The 30 years before that, 1960 to 90, it was 93 inches. And before that, it was 76 inches. So over the past roughly 100 years, the average snow in Rochester has actually gone up, increased, not decreased. Now, the last few years have seen quite the snow drought in Rochester. And my gosh, so far this decade, the average is just 66 inches. That's almost 40 inches, over 3 feet off that 30-year average. And nothing sums up the recent lack of snow than the past 2 winters. In fact, looking at the records, there are simply no comparable back-to-back winters with such little snow, around 50 inches below normal. Now, there are a few notable single winters with drastically low snow totals, but no winters have ever seen 2 in a row with so little snow. Now, over the years, I have mentioned that weather is much more perception versus reality. The reality is, until the last few years, average snow has actually increased and not decreased. I believe looking at the worst winters explains why so many perceive it having been snowier when they grew up. So let's take a look back. Look at these winters. Brutal, back-to-back late 1950s, including the snowiest winter in Rochester history, 1959-60. Also, we had some wicked winters in the 70s, including back-to-back doozies in the late 70s. And yes, even 20 years ago, we had some harsh winter weather. So what does all this mean? Well, in the grand scheme of things, not that much. Now, if this current trend continues for the next 10 to 20 years, then we could say a new normal has arrived. But as we have seen in the past, a switch can be flipped and boom, we may turn snowier than normal in the future.
When the big storm hits, sometimes there's just too much information coming at you from too many places, and you just don't know who to trust. And that's a problem. It is our job as meteorologists to keep you safe and informed. Meteorologist Stacey Pengen breaks down how the First Alert Weather Team does just that during the winter season.
There are a lot of trustworthy sources of information out there, and some, well, maybe not so trustworthy. That's where we want to make it easier on you. We want to weed through all of that information for you, and that's where our News 10 NBC First Alert Threat Tracker comes in really handy. When you see green, it doesn't necessarily mean our weather is going to be perfect, but we don't expect moderate or high impact weather, more inconvenient weather. So in the winter time, think of it as maybe a few inches of snow that's falling during off-peak commute times. No big issues. Now it starts to become a problem when those few inches of snow fall right before or right during one of those commutes. This is when we'll go ahead and issue a yellow alert weather day. So again, a few inches of snow during some of the commutes that makes travel difficult. Maybe it's reduced visibility out on the roads. Bottom line, this is something where you may need to give yourselves a little bit of extra time. Plan ahead a little more than you normally would and check back in. This is a heads up because these weather conditions and weather forecasts could potentially change. And when they change for the worse, well, we may have to go ahead and issue a red alert weather day. These are for those high impact, really widespread weather events. We're talking major events like blizzards, ice storms, nor'easters, heavy snow, whiteout conditions. Again, a lot of times focusing on the road conditions and around your commutes. Basically severe winter conditions that may be producing dangerous weather. Remember, we don't issue these all that often, so when we do, you really want to pay attention. At the end of the day, these are complicated forecasts that we want to make simple for you by using 3 easy colors. I know, it sounds elementary, but that's the point.
Thanks so much, Stacey. Now, do you remember Snowvember? It's been a decade since the historic lake effect event in Buffalo, plus our coldest month on record. We'll take you back right after the break.
Speaking of cold, during an average winter, we drop below zero 6 times. Do you know how many times we dropped below zero last year? The answer after the break. Welcome back. In an average winter, we drop below zero 6 times, but we never dropped below zero last winter at all. In fact, we only fell into the single digits twice all winter. Some of you may be not complaining. You may notice a few differences in the watches and warnings that are issued this winter. The National Weather Service is simplifying some of our winter hazards. For example, a wind chill watch warning and advisories are now extreme cold watch, extreme cold warning, and a cold weather advisory. Now the messaging, well, that's still the same, but the warnings are a little different. Just something to be aware of if you see some different terminology this winter.
Yeah, Stacey, you know, our last few winters have been obviously pretty wimpy, but that wasn't the case a decade ago. In fact, 10 years ago, Western New York went through one of the worst lake effect events in recent memory. Then later that winter, Rochester actually had its coldest month on record. First Alert meteorologist Nate Morris takes you back.
Here in Rochester, we had an exceptionally warm start to our November, with one day even getting up to 81 degrees, breaking a record. But 10 years ago, Western New York was experiencing something much more different.
This week marks the 10th anniversary of 2 extraordinary and unforgettable events in Western New York's winter history. Snowvember of 2014 and the cold wave of February 2015 that froze the region just months later. Snowvember was a double-barreled lake effect snowstorm that became one of the most significant winter events ever recorded in Western New York. Over the course of 72 hours, more than 6 feet of snow fell in some areas, while just a few miles away, accumulation was minimal. The snowband was only 15 to 20 miles wide, creating stark contrasts: blinding snow in one town, blue skies in the next. The first round of snow hit during rush hour on Monday the 17th. Stranding thousands of motorists and leading to a shutdown of the thruway all the way from Rochester to the Pennsylvania border. The storm claimed 14 lives, caused numerous roof collapses, and even led to scattered food and gas shortages. Hours after the first wave ended, a second lake effect event piled on an additional 1 to 4 feet of snow, bringing storm totals to nearly 7 feet in some spots. The storm was fueled by a deep, cold air mass moving over the relatively warm waters of Lake Erie. With perfect wind alignment, forecasters predicted feet of snow days in advance. Even with the preparation, the sheer magnitude of the event left residents struggling for weeks. Snow piles from Snowvember didn't fully melt until July 2015. And just when the region thought winter had done its worst, then came the cold wave of February 2015. This Arctic outbreak plunged the eastern United States into a deep freeze that lasted nearly the entire month, setting records for cold in many locations. It was caused by a large dip in the jet stream, bringing what's known as the polar vortex all the way down to the southeast. And unlike most instances of this, where the cold wave only lasts a few days, this one lasted the entire month. Rochester experienced its coldest February on record and coldest month in general on record, with an average temperature of a bone-chilling 12.2 degrees. Snowfall piled up to 45.7 inches, making it the city's 4th snowiest February. And with temperatures refusing to rise, snow depth averaged 15.3 inches for the month. Together, Snowvember and the cold wave of February 2015 defined the winter of 2014 to 2015 as one of the harshest in recent memory. They remain a powerful reminder of nature's awe-inspiring and, at times, overwhelming force. They also remind us of the strength and determination that defines our community.
Yeah, really impressive stuff there. We love playing in the snow here in Western New York, but what happens when Mother Nature doesn't deliver? Coming up, we go in depth on the science of man-made snow.
What is Rochester's biggest daily snowfall on record? Find out when we come back. Rochester's biggest daily snowfall happened in 1900, when Rochester recorded 29.8 inches of snow in 24 hours on March 1st. And we get our fair share of snow around here, but when we don't, we know the people who can keep snow on the ground. First Alert meteorologist Glenn Johnson takes us up the mountain and in depth.
We are at beautiful Bristol Ski Mountain, and it's a gorgeous day. Temperatures are in the 70s. They're not making snow on a day like today, but that's what we're talking about. We're talking about making snow, and they are already working on the ski guns to get ready for the winter season. You're probably thinking that Western New York gets plenty of natural snow. Why do we need to even make more snowfall? The very simple reason is that during the last 5 seasons, the amount of natural snow has been below normal. In fact, some years it has been well below the typical season of 101 inches. Obviously, they're not going to be making snow here at Bristol on a day like today. Temperatures are well into the 70s, but there is going to be a time coming up here in the winter season when these snow guns right here, they're going to be very busy, and they're going to be making a lot of snow. A lot of time, energy, and expense goes into the science of making snow. The basic ingredients, in fact, the necessary ingredients, are water, a condensation nuclei, and probably the most important ingredient is just cold, dry air.
It's going to take a large amount of water.
Paul Trippi is the Bristol Mountain operations manager. He's the guy that's making the snow.
2 biggest types of snow gun technology that exist are air-water, where it's a conventional air-water gun that combines compressed air and water and sprays it into the atmosphere, and fan gun type technology like this one, which doesn't use the compressed air aspect, but it has a large fan in it to propel the water droplets into the cold atmosphere.
Here's the question. Is making man-made snow better than natural snow? Let's do a little comparison. Natural snow usually needs a temperature of 32 degrees or below, whereas natural snow works best at 28 degrees or colder. Natural snow will freeze from the inside out, but man-made snow will freeze from the outside in. Natural snow has a water content of 6 to 12%. And that's in contrast to man-made snow, which uses much greater amounts of water, on the order of 20 to 50% water content. And snow, well, from Mother Nature, has a more dendritic shape. It certainly adds to the beauty, but artificial snow, it has more of a ball shape or a circular shape to it. In the very end, man-made snow is more durable than natural snow and lasts for a much greater period of time. That fact alone will keep the skiers on the mountain.
In our existing climate here in upstate New York, the windows of opportunity are small. Without snowmaking, in our climate here, Bristol Mountain wouldn't exist.
We're coming off a handful of really wimpy winters. Coming up, should we expect another, or are we going to buck the trend? Your winter outlook is after the break.
And keeping with our snow theme, do you know what our snowiest month on record was? The answer on the other side of the break. Rochester's snowiest month on record was February 1958, when we had to shovel 64.8 inches of snow in just 28 days.
Not at all like our recent winters here, but we want to get into what could this upcoming winter be like. And of course, we always start with the ENSO pattern, or the large scale pattern here. And we are looking at a La Nina pattern this year. Last year was an El Nino. We've had a lot of La Ninas. This is a weaker La Nina. And what a La Nina pattern generally does, first of all, it means cooler than average sea surface temperatures in the equatorial Pacific. But overall, the pattern, it kind of messes with the jet stream a little bit. So it tends to bring the Great Lakes region a little bit of a wetter winter, but also a little bit of a warmer winter. And the storm track kind of cuts through or just south of the Great Lakes. So the active storm track may come into play as far as this winter goes. Now, I looked back since 1950 and checked out what were our previous weak La Nina winters like as far as snowfall goes. We had 12 of them. 6 of them featured above average snowfall. 6 of them featured below average snowfall. And some of these were well above average. 118 back in 83, 84, 133 back in 2000 and 2001. So a lot of times we have to look beyond just the classic El Nino or La Nina. So we're going to look at NAO, PNA, other patterns that will help to dictate shorter term trends. But overall, I'm thinking the weak La Nina will give us more opportunities for Arctic air intrusion. So maybe we'll get some more frequent blasts of that Arctic air. Late start to winter, obviously we've seen that, but could December catch up? And this is a bold prediction here. I'm thinking, could we see a white Christmas this year? And near average snowfall, snowier than recent years, which, is not really saying a whole lot here because we've had very little snow over the previous years. So with that being said, we all put together our winter snow hats and we predict our winter snowfall, which I have to admit, we haven't done well in the past years.
Come on.
But here we go. So Rich is going.
I'm not even going to show mine.
Rich is going 111. I'm going 97 inches. Glenn 85, and Nate 75 inches. So what are you guys thinking about this winter, Rich?
Yeah, you were just talking about that weak La Nina, and it does have some opportunities, but I love how you went through it. 6 above, 6 below.
Flip a coin.
That puts you right on the fence there. So
Right.
there is at least that opportunity if we can get that storm track coming up through the interior northeast,
Right.
get just enough cold air. Even if it averages above normal, you can still get enough cold air. I'm hoping this is the bounce back
This is
year.
it.
Bounce
Nate?
back year for snow.
Well, obviously, I'm a rookie, so I have a lot riding on this year, but I am fairly confident about my forecast. Now,
Okay.
my thinking process is that we are going to bounce back. I mean, we're largely overdue for it, but I
Right.
don't think we're going to get quite up to average levels, so I'm going with a nice and even 75 inches.
Got it.
All right.
And we got to remember, we're talking about weather patterns that affect all of North America, right? So then we get down to lake effect, which
Yeah.
is 50% of our snow.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a problem. How do you figure that out? It's a huge challenge.
But we're here for it.
All we can say is stay tuned, keep it here. We'll, of course, keep you updated.